Two different stories we're talking about today, first of which having to deal with a brand new game that is officially in development, at least that is the claim from an essentially Pioro level source for when it comes to Sega and Atlas leaks. We are talking about Midori confirming that Sonic Frontiers 2 is actually a title that will be in development, and no doubt this game will likely be headed to Nintendo Switch 2, and it may not have that title, but we'll unpack all of that and what kind of gameplay direction we might see Sega go in with the sequel to Frontiers from a gameplay perspective. Then story number 2 has to deal with some exciting tech that has been spotted online for Nintendo Switch 2, presumably, because due to different reports we've seen before from reliable names like Nate the Hate saying that 3D NAND flash is something that Nintendo will presumably use for their game cards this time around, and we now have, courtesy of Doctre81, a Samsung employee actually citing that this work was done back in 2019, and it's something that likely Nintendo would have explored the option of for their next gen console well in advance of when they need to launch these things. So there's a lot of exciting implications into what this means for Nintendo Switch 2 games, the size of the cartridges, how much cheaper they are to produce, and we'll get on the same page with all of that stuff. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off by hopping over to My Nintendo News and reading through the article that does outline that it looks like we're going to get Sonic Frontiers 2, which it doesn't come as much of a surprise to me. It definitely felt like this was, and we have it in fact in quotes from the Sonic team lead, that this was kind of the groundwork and essentially the direction for 3D Sonic games from here on out, at least for the next 10 years or so. So you would assume to see a sequel, but it sounds like Sega's working hard at this behind the scenes as we speak. So you can see this following article, which reads, Midori confirms a sequel to Sonic Frontiers is in development. Name could change. It would seem as though the Sonic team's next big project is a sequel to Sonic Frontiers, which launched in 2022. The news was first shared by Daniel RPK and was corroborated by the reliable Sega Atlas leaker Midori. Sega has not announced a sequel to Sonic Frontiers, but it seems as though this is their next big game in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. You can then see the string of tweets in question where first users asking if they can confirm that the information is correct. Midori says this is correct in reference to Sonic Frontiers 2 being in development, and then you have another reply which says, is there any additional info you could provide? Is that the code name? It's officially a Frontiers 2. And Midori responds, the title is a sequel to Frontiers in gameplay style, but the name might change. Frontiers was Rangers until it was announced. So as someone who did enjoy my time with Sonic Frontiers overall, I am excited for this confirmation. I definitely felt like Frontiers was the version 1 of something that Sega could take to a higher level with a sequel, and hopefully some more time to kind of bake everything out, even from a technical perspective, because you might remember all of the pop-in and things and even the level design, like just kind of strange having large open areas, but just a lot of travel throughout them, and then random rails in the sky, and you would have textures and pop in, like severely taking you out of the gameplay experience if you're paying attention to that stuff. And so I liked the combat system as well, cool skill tree and new abilities as you progress with Sonic, and I think it did a lot right for the future of more open zone 3D Sonic games. Of course, you still had your more traditional smaller levels with challenges and things that you could go complete, but it felt like a version 1 of what that could be, and I do think that a sequel is going to be exciting. It will probably be visually enhanced for Nintendo Switch 2 and likely run a lot better on that platform than the Switch version we got, which definitely was a noticeable downgrade from PS5 and Series X and S versions, as you would expect. So in true Sega fashion, there's no shortage of Sonic projects. We're talking about, the potential. It sounds like it wasn't as solid as it sounded like, but Sonic Heroes could be getting a remaster, and maybe that's just being talked about and not necessarily in the greenlit phase. So that may be a while off, but we also know Sonic X Shadow Generations is actually right around the corner from releasing later this year, as it's slated for a fall 2024 launch. But we recently just saw this game rated, I believe, in South Korea, and that can sometimes give you a little bit of indication on where Sega's at within the development of this game. And because it's kind of a remaster re-release with some new content, I would expect it to be more or less content complete at this point, and it's likely just being saved for that fall 2024 release, so it aligns with the better holiday shopping time and things like that. But lots going on with Sonic behind the scenes. Let me know in the comments down below if you're excited for Frontiers 2. Do you think it should keep that core gameplay formula and just expand upon it and take it to newer, broader open zones? Or do you think 3D Sonic games should go back to more of what they were before, as Sega continues to try different things with that 3D formula for Sonic, or should it go entirely open world, which seems like it'd be a hard thing to pull off for Sonic, but Frontiers was definitely a step at that. Large open traversal areas, open zones, if you will. Do they just take it to a Breath of the Wild level map? Let me know all your thoughts and feelings on what you want to see from the future of 3D Sonic in the comments down below. Story number 2 today has to do specifically with some exciting tech that's been discovered for Nintendo Switch 2, presumably what Nintendo will be using in terms of the game card that you pick up whenever you go to purchase a game physically. I still purchase the mass majority of all of my content for the Nintendo Switch physically whenever possible. Of course, we're seeing a lot more in the way of digital only releases nowadays, but when it has a physical version, I try to pick that up. And one thing you want to see on physical media is the entire game on the cartridge, because there's already a handful of Nintendo Switch games that you buy the cartridge and it says additional download required just to be able to boot up the game. That's obviously an issue for long-term game preservation. If you care about stuff like that 15-20 years in the future, when servers are presumably going to be offline. And you may remember reports a while back that Nintendo would be using some kind of 3D NAND technology for their game carts in their next-gen console, and we haven't really had any specific proof that corroborated that until now. Thanks to Dr.81, I'll have his YouTube channel linked in the description down below. This also got picked up by WCCF Tech, which did a write-up on it, which we will be reading through, but the long and short of it is we have specific employee information from Samsung that looks like this work was completed quite a while back. As you can see the following article, which reads, Nintendo Switch 2 may use Samsung 5th generation VNAND with up to 1.4 gigabytes read speed. As reported by Dr.81 in a new video shared on YouTube, the LinkedIn page of a former Samsung Electronics Device Solution Division Senior Director who's been at the company until 2019 lists among key qualifications and responsibilities having led the development of a NAND flash controller device for an unspecified Nintendo game cart. Among the key achievements, the former Samsung employee also lists the development of secure eMMC card powered by Samsung Memory's 5th generation VNAND flash, which seems to line up not only with the NAND flash controller device for the unspecified Nintendo game cart, but also some other information such as innovating security for unspecified proprietary hardware and designing a new PUF/IP physical unclonable function. The Nintendo Switch 2 requiring faster read speeds than its predecessor isn't exactly surprising, but Nintendo using Samsung 5th generation VNAND is still great news, and even though by today's standards it is somewhat dated tech, as Samsung is working on 9th and 10th generation VNAND, with the latter being planned to be released in 2025, still the up to 1.4 gigabyte speeds featured by the 5th generation should be more than enough for the new console and a major step forward from its predecessor. Very little is known about the Nintendo Switch 2 other than the fact that it will be powered once again by NVIDIA technology. The T239 chip will be a massive step up over the Tegra X1 chip powering the current Nintendo system, as it's said to support features such as NVIDIA DLSS upscaling and ray reconstruction that will likely make it the best ray tracing capable gaming system on the market. So to focus in slightly on the fact that this is 5th gen and Samsung's now up to working on like 9th and 10th gen, that might sound like it's like super far behind, and technically this wouldn't be industry shattering tech or anything that Nintendo is spearheading being like brand new to the market, but you would also expect them maybe not to necessarily go with the newest, considering that the cost of the 5th generation might be significantly less than the current generations, and it might also still be more than what they need for Nintendo Switch 2 level games to get up to like 50, 60, 70 gigabytes on a cart plus. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see games like that. The scope of games nowadays, just look at Call of Duty files in general, like a lot of them over 100 gigabytes plus. And of course, you might be able to do things with compression and bringing things down, but we know Call of Duty is going to be on Nintendo Switch for at least 10 years going forward, and that presumably will lead into the Switch 2 once that console launches, and you're going to have some big problems with trying to pick up that game physically, and it might be one of those things where you're purchasing a cartridge and just downloading the entire game today on the current generation Switches, and obviously they're going to need to solve for that when it comes to next gen. And this is also a work profile from 2019, so this was done quite a while back. There is definitely a possibility that Nintendo developed a game card using the 5th gen technology, but they may also be planning to move that forward to 6th or 7th gen by the time the console launches. Either way, it's going to be a massive leap forward with how 3D NAND works, the cost effectiveness behind it, the amount of data it can store, and the speeds at which that data is transferred, leading you to believe that we should have still that same ability where you're you're not inserting a game cart to install it to the system memory, but rather playing the game directly off said cart. And if you guys are like me, you're probably just ready to see Nintendo finally talk about this thing already. I'm hopeful that May investors briefing gives us some kind of official confirmation and acknowledgement from Nintendo around their next generation devices, because they should be forecasting their entire next fiscal year of system sales, and that question will come up directly from investors, no doubt. So stay tuned for that, but let me know in the comments down below how you feel about both the different stories we covered today. What do you want to see from the future of 3D Sonic games, and are you excited that Frontiers is more or less getting a sequel? And what do you think about Nintendo planning new game cards with significantly higher read speeds and the 3D NAND technology? Are you excited for physical games to stick around for the next generation console, as they presumably will? And do you think that the 5th generation is what Nintendo will actually launch these game cards with, or is this just one of these steps along the way and we will actually see it be much more recent tech when it actually is finally revealed to us? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before we leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.